Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, it's been a couple days, but I figured I might as well go ahead and still do this, a couple days ago, a trailer came out for Kingdom Hearts 4. Well, in particular, the trailer I saw was the one that included some of the mobile game stuff, but also kind of a reveal trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4. If you haven't seen it already, I'll include a link to it in the description down below. I'm sure you can find the one that's just Kingdom Hearts 4, but I'm probably going to include the one that I watched that had like the mobile stuff as well, because it is important. So, which obviously seeing this, I was super excited. Obviously just kind of sharing my immediate thoughts. It's still in that weird, not necessarily uncanny valley, I don't know. It's weird to see Sora look that way, because you can tell like now it's like even more higher definition and his character model's changed even more. Like it's just like in 3 when you're doing your character builds at the very beginning of like the Station of Awakenings or whatever, and you're looking at scenes from the previous games and then you compare that to how the look of Kingdom Hearts 3. It's a little like jarring to some extent. So you almost still kind of get that because it feels real, because I mean it feels weird. It almost feels like that shouldn't be Kingdom Hearts. But it's weird seeing him in a city, because we only see him in a full-blown metropolis cityscape like that technically like what, 2 times, well technically 3 times, because I think that's the place he fights Yozora in like RE Mind. I've never played it myself, but I've seen like cutscenes and stuff from that. But I know like that's where he ends up finding Yozora. That's actually isn't it like that's also where like Sora and Riku are at when you get the original like secret ending and such. But other than that, you get the whole situation of the other place I'm thinking of, Big Hero 6. I always forget, San Francisco, I believe. Like that's the like main metropolis place you get to go to in the game. Well, I mean Monstropolis, but you stay inside of Monster Inc. You never actually go into the town and such. And it's not the same thing, but the final area, I always forget the place's name. Was it Scala de Kayam? I always forget that place's name. It's where you fight Xehanort, like at the very end of 3. That place. That's the closest things you get to like full-blown like towns and stuff, and so it just kind of, San Francisco is probably like the closest comparison, like especially with all the people around, the technology, the cars and stuff like that. It's kind of wild. I don't know who that girl is. I'm sure it's one of those things where you're supposed to know who she is, the one that's talking to Sora in the apartment building, because I have some blind spots when it comes to Kingdom Hearts. I've played most of the games. The only ones I haven't played are 3, 5, 8 Days Over 2 and RE Coded. Obviously there's the HD like movies basically that exist. So I've watched those, I've obviously just never played them, but also I've only dabbled in Union Cross like a tiny bit, and that was a couple years ago, so I haven't deep dived. So there's a lot of the Keyblade War and all the like lore that's in that game that I haven't touched yet. I need to change it at some point in time, especially with all these updates and stuff. But so I've got some blind spots here and there, but if I'm not mistaken, because I think that also ties into the Moogle-like thing you run into in the final world that at the very end meets up with Ventus, because they have a connection. I think that gets brought up in Union Cross. Once again, I'm speaking from a place, like I said, this is my blind spot, so if I'm saying anything wrong, do correct me in the comments down below. But that girl that you see, I want to say there's a voice that you can talk to in the final world. She's pretty acquainted with Sora, and he's like, right, let's meet again. I'm assuming that's her, like this is her body, and now this is her like not just being a voice, but you know, having a body here. I'm assuming that's the same girl, but I could be mistaken. But it looks pretty dope. And then once again, it's the comparison that kind of gets made is like original stuff that came out about Final Fantasy versus 13. I could definitely see like Final Fantasy versus 13, also Final Fantasy 15 elements to it, just being in like a large cityscape like that, like almost like Insomnia. It looks dope. That's all I have to say. Obviously, it's like a little section. Yes, the argument is like, well, it's mainly QTE stuff. I don't care. It still looks cool. It looks dope. Obviously, you've always got to bring out the dark side. It's like, yeah, that's like your go-to like Heartless, big like Heartless on that scale. Seems even bigger than normal, but regardless. What I thought was interesting about that sequence is it does seem like we are bringing back the form changes from 3, but it's interesting because, well, the Kingdom Key didn't have like a major form change. The only difference was Sora like put on his clothes, changed into his Kingdom Hearts 2 clothes, and then he could use a lot of the skills he had from KH2. That's about it. So, but for his, like, it to turn into basically a magical drill like that, which was kind of interesting. Like, he fires it like a magical shot. I'm curious to see if there's going to be any of the attractions in this, because I know that has been a big complaint for some people, because they were just too overpowered and people just didn't enjoy them. That's a complaint I've heard from a few people. Not saying everyone felt that like that. I enjoyed them, but, you know, to teach their own and stuff like that. So, I'm curious, will those come back, and even if they do, in what shape or form? Obviously, big questions like what summons are we going to get? The other conversations that have come up too are like, what worlds are we getting? Like the thing that people wanted for a while, are we going to get Marvel? Are we going to get Star Wars? I could definitely see that happening, but you know, maybe it's something they're going to wait a little. But I would always love, like, oh my god, let's get some Marvel stuff. Cool. Like, you know, maybe they do like the first Avengers movie. You'd have to like jump in very much like you do the Pirates of the Caribbean. Cause I know that was a complaint for some people, was because Port Royal, well, the Pirates of the Caribbean story in 3 follows the third movie, but you're kind of skipping over all that. You're jumping in the middle of that story, and it's a very heavily condensed version, pretty much like every other like Disney property in those games. But still, I would assume the same thing. Like, if you were to join, like, it'd probably be most likely the Avengers movie, and then you'd probably like, you know, Star Wars. I think there's probably a little more easier leeway with that than the question then becomes like, well, where do you start? Do you start with the original trilogy, the prequels, the sequels, the Mandalorian? Where in the time frame are you going to jump into that? I'd be fine with it. I'm not the biggest Star Wars person, but I still won't like a bad an eye to be like, oh my god, it's Sora talking to freaking Luke Skywalker. I'd still mark out about that. But yeah, stuff like that. What are the Disney worlds we're going to get? Like, you know, will we get like a Coco? Will we get Encanto or Moana? Stuff like that. Even if we don't get the Marvel and Star Wars stuff, I'm kind of fine with it. I know not everyone feels that way, but I'd be fine with just like, yeah, more Disney stuff. I'm fine with that. Hopefully this time around too, we do get more Square Enix stuff in it as well, because obviously there have been some advancements. Like, well, obviously even before 3 came out, 15 was a thing, but, you know, get some 13, some 15. Once again, I think probably some of that's tackled in some of the mobile games, but just in like the main games and stuff. Which I should also point out, I really do like the logo, like the font in which they use for the 4. I was like, ooh, I like that design a lot. I didn't talk about it, but we also see Donald and Goofy in the trailer, so I'm assuming they're looking for Sora. The whole point is to probably try and find Sora and get him back, which I think is so fascinating just from a storytelling perspective. I didn't think this would be the end. I didn't think we just leave Sora dead and wipe our hands of it, because this is supposed to be a new arc, as they said, the Lost Master arc. Because everything from 1 to 3 and in between is part of the, well, I guess even Union Cross. I mean, because Union Cross bleeds over because it's part of the Lost Master arc, but it's also like Birth by Sleep, a major like super far back prequel to everything that is the Xehanort saga. So that was always a big question of mine going forward. Would Sora no longer be the main protagonist, but we're still keeping up with Sora, and this is 4. If they had given it some other subtitle, I'd be like, okay, maybe this is going to be kind of like an epilogue to exit out Sora's story, but it's still his adventure, especially because we got Donald and Goofy still around too, so I guess we're still going to be following him for this next arc, however long that ends up being, so I'm pretty excited. Also, I didn't talk about it much, but it is pretty crazy to be like, wow, it's been 20 years. I did the same thing when it came to Kingdom Hearts 3, because it dropped in 2019, right? And at that point, it was like 17, 18 years at that point. And now it's like, right, it's been 20 years. I was 9 years old when I first got Kingdom Hearts for like, I think it was for Christmas. I was 9, and I was like, the moment I saw like magazine stuff about Kingdom Hearts, I was like, this is it. Oh my god, Disney and Final Fantasy mixed together. This is the coolest thing ever. And even now, as a 29-year-old, I'd still mark at it. It's still one of those things I look at back at like, wow, it's crazy to have started there and where we've gone through. I know that's a whole range of emotions for some people. Some people have loved the journey. Some people have only loved some parts of the journey, and that's okay. Like, but I've loved every step of the way. I followed the story even when it came to the games that were on the PSP or the DS or the Game Boy. Like, you know, obviously subsequently now that there's all the you can get all the games all on the PS4 and such, I now have subsequently played all of them, once again with the exceptions of the ones that are just the movies, like 358 Days and already coded. But yeah, And I have not played the Melody one that came out after 3. I haven't played that either. I did a video a while back talking about it because I think Nomura had talked a little bit about some of the plans they had going forward for Kingdom Hearts, because I think there was going to be an in-between game, which ended up being that Melody game. I believe that was the in-between game they were talking about, because at the time I'd read up about it, there were no details about it, and then there'd be like a 4th Kingdom Hearts. So, and the fact is we are going straight into that. There isn't like, I mean, even though it's a thing of like, none of the games are like side games. Like 358 Days Over 2 isn't a side game, it's main canon. Same thing for Birth by Sleep. They might have subtitles, but they are, you know, they might not be one of the main 3, but they're still important stories in this universe, in this continuity. So that's also the thing of like, I was surprised us to immediately be getting a 4. I thought maybe we get another subtitle game that might as well be 4, because 3 might as well be 10 at this point in time. Kingdom Hearts 3 might as well be Kingdom Hearts 10, but regardless. I think I talked about it at the time that I was curious whether or not maybe Kairi would get shifted over and become like the main protagonist rather than it being Sora. You know, or maybe they do a different thing, because obviously during Kingdom Hearts 3, you didn't really get to bounce back and forth between other characters. I wonder, will they make more of an effort of that going forward? Will we bounce between what Riku's up to and Kairi's up to in their attempts to potentially get Sora back after everything? Like like a lot of the other Keyblade wielders, will we get to spend more time with them going forward during this next arc, or what new characters we get introduced to, what familiar faces are going to pop up with all of this. Obviously, I've just kind of done a lot of running my mouth off, but I just kind of wanted to let you know kind of where my mind was, where my thoughts were with everything. And like I said, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get to know yours. What did you think about the reveal? What are some things you want for Kingdom Hearts 4? What are some things you expect to see in Kingdom Hearts 4? Just let me know your thoughts in general. The 20th anniversary, how old were you like when you first started playing Kingdom Hearts? Did you first play it like when it originally came out for you, like I did for me? Did you play every subsequent game as it came out? Did you have all the systems to do it? Also, let me know just your excitement meter when it comes to 4. Are you excited? Are you not excited? Because I know for some people, 3 was a letdown. For some people, was not for me. I thoroughly enjoyed 3. I understand people's criticisms, but once again, those weren't enough to take away from my enjoyment and how I felt about it. But I know that was kind of like it pumped the brakes for a lot of people when it came to Kingdom Hearts. You know, once again, to everyone their own. So, just like I said, just let me know all your thoughts. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.